being focused on goals and performance typically leads to them not being really able to connect. And that is usually also what I experience in couples, which is what women are wanting and desiring much more than like having a man who can give them 10,000 orgasms in 2 minutes.
Today, we have a well-known sex therapist who has been a strong advocate for better education and better resources in Germany. She studied psychology, specialized in couples and sex therapy. Antonia, welcome to the channel.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be talking to you.
To begin with, I would like to ask, what inspired you to pursue this path?
For me, it was actually clear that I wanted to do this job when I came out of school already. I started studying psychology with this specific goal in mind. And that was because when I was growing up, I was very fortunate to have a mother who raised me very sex positively, who taught me a lot about pleasure, about erotic freedom. And I realized that this was an exception, not the rule. And I was able to witness many friends growing up having very different experiences, growing up with a lot of sexual shame or just not being very educated about it, and then having their first experiences not be very good or pleasurable. And I also just figured out that generally in society, sex is still a huge taboo, and that it was kind of special that I was already well aware of many things and had this mother who taught me to not be ashamed of that topic. And then I realized that it's the same with relationships, that both of these things are skills, relationships as well as sexuality. But in our society, no one really teaches you how to do it. So many people struggle with it a lot. There's a lot of shame, there's a lot of confusion, there's many myths about it that lead to more problems for people. And I just realized that I wanted to be part of, the movement to change that, I would say.
Yeah, now you've been doing this for several years, dealing with this topic. What would you say was eye-opening for you, specifically dealing with couples?
I would say generally in couples, it was surprising to me in a way how important sex actually is in relationships. I feel like for many people, it's something that is, it's very important in the beginning of a relationship, and then it's just not that important anymore. And of course, it's not good if you have an actual issue there, but generally it's just, sex just becomes less important, less frequent, less prioritized. And what I see very often is that this really does something to people. It does something to the relationship. It does something to the individuals if we are not connected to our sexuality anymore. And it does something to the connection between us and to the aliveness in a relationship, I would say. And when it comes to men, I'm continually surprised that this view that we have in our society of male sexuality being kind of simple or almost maybe primitive compared to women's sexuality, that is just not true. I feel like many people have this view that women are like super complex and they have deep experiences and they have a lot of emotions and sexuality, and it's this huge, big, complex thing, and men, well, they're kind of like easy. And I think that is just not true, and it does a huge disservice to male sexuality and to the possibilities that men have in their sexuality and the emotional depth that they can reach.
We also had just a talk that I will link to the description for your podcast, and we were sharing about how a lot of men are disconnected from their hearts. emotional tightness around the chest, not really being authentic, not really showing what's really going on, trying to keep it somehow together. Is this also something you experienced in your work, and what is your feeling is the problem there?
Yeah, I feel like many men are mostly in a kind of performance mode when it comes to sex. And I think many are not even aware of that, but it's maybe generally how they are socialized, that it's a lot about what they can do, what they are able to do, the skills they have, the strength that they show, about not being weak or confused, but knowing what you're doing. So I feel like men get stuck in their head a lot, or they are very goal oriented when it comes to sex. They have this maybe a specific script in mind. Maybe it's also shaped by pornography, or what they think the woman wants, for example. And then they are very focused on maybe the technical aspect or the positions or reaching orgasm or getting her to reach orgasm. And this being focused on goals and performance typically leads to them not being really able to connect. And that is usually also what I experience in couples, which is what women are wanting and desiring much more than like having a man who can give them 10,000 orgasms in 2 minutes. That's not really the thing. They want to feel his presence. They want to feel the connection. They want to really feel seen and felt, and they want to be able to feel and see him. And I feel like this is one of the biggest shifts that is very beautiful to witness when men step out of this performance mode and connect to their heart, to their emotions, to themselves, and then to their partners too.
Yeah, beautiful. And how do you think actually men might be able then to open and actually allow themselves? What is actually the barrier, or what is the thing they need to go through in order to do that?
I think one thing is what we also talked about in my podcast, that it's a lot about negative beliefs that shape the way we behave. For example, if I as a man have this belief that a woman will judge me for my performance or for my penis or for the way I can make her orgasm or not, and this is what I think she wants, then I'm basically a prisoner of this belief. And this will shape everything else that I'm able to do and experience and feel. So one part of the work that I also do with clients is working with these negative beliefs and making sure if what we believe is really true. And if it's not true, then look at what it is doing to you to believe it. And what would it feel like to let it go and not believe it? How would you behave in the situation if you were free of this belief? This is one aspect of it, I would say. And the other aspect is, of course, the connection to our own sexuality. And I think for connection to another person, that is always the baseline that we need to be connected to ourselves, to be able to feel ourselves, feel our desires, our body, our emotions, and not be in our head too much. And from that standpoint, I can truly connect with another person. So I think that is also why the work you do with men is so amazing and successful, because it helps them first to truly connect to themselves, be conscious of their own body and feeling and what's going on with them. And with that knowledge, it opens completely new doors.
Let's move to some of the transformations or changes you have experienced in your work. I mean, you've been doing this for a while. What would you say was interesting for you to see? Like, how can this transformation, the shift can occur?
It's amazing to me to see how much it can move people when you just help them step into presence and connection just a little bit. I, just like you, oftentimes coach people via Zoom, so I don't always see everything that's going on. But I oftentimes give couples some practice to try out with each other that surrounds touch. touching each other in a very present, connected way. And then I often differentiate between giving touch that's supposed to be good for you and taking touch, touching you in a way that's enjoyable for me. And that is for many people, especially also for couples, a very, very interesting shift to be aware of which one am I doing right now? How does it feel to the other person? And for the one receiving the touch, what makes the difference? And I've experienced it many times that, for example, I have a couple there and they are feeling disconnected in the sexuality. Maybe he wants sex much more often. She feels like she has lost her libido. It has become very polarized between them. And then I do this touching exercise with them. And he touches her in a very conscious way, very aware of what he wants to evoke in her, how it should feel to her. He is witnessing her, trying to figure out how she reacts to it. And it brings women to tears. It moves them so deeply to suddenly be touched in this way. And we are on a Zoom call and he's touching her arm. Nothing more is happening. But she can feel this shift in his attention, in his presence, in his attunement to her. And and I will never get tired of these moments. I feel like that's always the moment where I really feel and remember why I love this work so much.
Mm. Yeah, that's beautiful. What would you say is, specifically we're talking about men, is a sexually empowered man?
To me, a sexually empowered man is a man who is free from all the limiting social scripts that we have about sexuality. He's free from the need to reach a specific goal. He's free from the viewpoint of only penetration is real sex. He's free from the viewpoints around emotionality in men, that it's something bad or something that he should hide. He is very connected to his feelings and to his body, and he is very attuned to himself and to the other person. I feel like that is the most important skill that we can have in sexuality, to hold both, to be very much connected to what's going on with me, but also be very much present with the other person. And a man who is able to hold this and be truly present in the moment and see what is needed right now, whatever energy that is, and is not contained to just one specific kind of sex. I think that is something that you also mentioned in our podcast episode, that it's very important to be able to play with these contrasting energies that we have in sexuality, that sometimes it's light, it's sensual, it's soft, it's slow, and then sometimes it's wild, it's animalistic, it's primal, it's rough maybe, and then we can play between the energies depending on what we are feeling that day and what is present for both of us. And that is, to me, a sexually empowered man, someone who has range in their sexuality.
Yeah, so we're coming toward the end, and I wanted to ask you about people who feel stuck in their sexuality. Is there some place specifically you would tell them to begin with?
Yes, I would say two things. One thing is to really start with your own connection to your sexuality. In a sexual context with another person, there are many things that are adding to the situation. There's our dynamic with each other. There's maybe issues from the past that are still lingering. There's all these beliefs that I have about how you see me, how you're supposed to see me, how I'm supposed to act around you, which adds to the things that I struggle with personally already on my own. So I would say strip the situation of all of the factors that are concerned with another person and just see what is your connection to eros, what is your connection to sexuality, what is your connection to your body, to your genital, to your arousal, what are the negative beliefs there, what is the shame there, and really look at what is there for you. And then I always like to start with sensuality, because that is something that is, there are opportunities to practice connecting to sensuality all the time, every day. I can drink my coffee in a way that is very disconnected, or I can take it as an opportunity to practice tuning into my senses, connecting to sensuality, being in enjoyment, being in my turn on, really consciously drinking this coffee. And I can do that with everything, because technically almost everything we do is sensual in some way. When we take a shower, when we get dressed, when we put body lotion on, when we walk, when we feel the wind on our skin, when we see something in nature, for example, all of that is connected to sensuality. And sensuality is, for me, connected to eros and life force. So that to me is a big part where we can start. And then I would just say, look at your solo sex practice. Self-pleasure practices can be an amazing starting point to feel if you're even comfortable to truly touch your body, to truly feel yourself. And if that is something where you're already feeling, I have some blockages there, then I would really say get support for that. Get a specialist to help you look into what's going on there, to let go of blockages and to let go of negative beliefs that are keeping you away from your pleasure.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, that could be an amazing step for itself, just to come to that place that as a man, you're with yourself and there is self-love. If you could whisper one thing in the ear of every man around sexuality, intimacy, what would that be?
Slow down. It would be slow down. It is one of my favorite, amazing, super simple hacks to transform your sex life and your connection to yourself. So much gets lost when we don't slow down. So much gets lost in our own presence, in our connection with the other person. We override things we could be feeling because we are speeding up to the next point, to the next point, to the next point. We are focused on the goal. We are not in the moment. So really breathing, slowing down, being present, tuning into the senses. That is, I would say, the most important thing, and it changes everything.